I have memories from the very beginning of being connected to the natural world, and I spent time outside. We found things to do. We invented games, we played by ourselves, we explored the natural world. I became great friends with things like birds and snakes and frogs. And when you ran into the little local stream, you wanted to know where it went. You wanted to know where it came from. The first thing we did when we found a stream is we followed it. We found it went all the way to the Delaware River. Then we thought, where did it come from? There was a sense of exploring. There was a sense that there is a frontier out there. More important than that, we started to understand that we are part of the natural world. You met the things that lived in it. If there's magic in this world, it is contained in water. I'm Jeff Hoagland, Education Director here at the Stony Brook-Millstone Watershed Association. I think it might be a little bit harder for children to have the exact same opportunities that maybe we did a generation ago. A lot of land has been developed, and sometimes it's not just that it's all been developed, but sometimes the development has sort of hidden some of those wild places. One of the basic premises that we teach about is that there's an interconnectedness between all the living things here in our planet. And that might be best expressed by looking at our waterways. We are a watershed association, and so we look at our waterways in the context of a watershed. One of the basic concepts that we want to teach is what is a watershed? And it's interesting because kids don't generally have a notion. In fact, most adults don't either.
Can you tell us what a watershed is?
From what? No, that's something I'm more loose on. From what I'm aware, it is it's a...
Do you know what a watershed is?
I've heard the term, but I'm not quite sure I know what a watershed is.
Dan, we're here, I think we're in one now, but I don't exactly know what the purpose of it is. I think these canals that run across here have something to do with it too, don't they? Yeah?
A watershed, first off, is a very simple phenomenon. It's essentially the area of land that drains a particular water body. So as it rains, the water that flows over the surface in our watershed all drains into the Millstone River. It's easy to forget that just a few decades ago, our waters were so polluted by industrialization. Some of them in this country caught fire, literally.
Back then, before the Clean Water Act, the big issue was point sources of pollution. Factories were dumping things into the waterway untreated, and a lot of our waterways were becoming dumping grounds. Urban sewage systems, just you flush the toilet, it went into the river. So the Clean Water Act in 1970 started to change that. So a lot of that is made a big difference. But there are still threats to the waters, and we call those non-point source pollution. And non-point source pollution can be anything that we do to our land, whether it be using fertilizers or whether it be a corporate pond that's surrounded by geese who are going to the bathroom there every day. It's a broad source of pollutants, and what makes it difficult to control is it's not coming out of a pipe that you can measure and really watch.
I call it pointless pollution. It's the pollution that comes down mostly from development, from septics, from lawns and fertilizer, from animal waste. And that's called non-point. That's in our stormwater, and when it rains, it flows into our rivers and streams, bringing mud and other debris with it. And we do not have a proper stormwater system anywhere in the state of New Jersey to really manage stormwater. In fact, I think people don't even realize that we have regulations that even undercut protections.
When we occupy the land and we live within a watershed, we impact that watershed. When we put down hard surfaces like roads, parking lots, driveways, when we build buildings with hard surface roofs, that impedes the percolation of water down into the aquifer, and it speeds the water across the land a lot more quickly than it otherwise would run. And oftentimes it picks up pollutants along the way, things like oil and solvents and other things that are picked up through that runoff, deposited in our streams, polluting them along the way. So as a watershed association, we're looking to try to preserve, and in some cases restore, that natural hydrological balance. What can we do to mitigate the negative impacts that we're having?
With the urbanization of the state, it's continually growing. Within the past 10 years, it's increased 400,000 people, which is a lot of people. And housing developments come up. We put concrete, we put asphalt pads everywhere, and that increases our runoff, which in turn increases the amount of stormwater runoff that's reaching our waterways in big flushes. And this is the polluted runoff that can affect our water quality. As a Bureau of Non-Point Pollution Control, we're not only trying to control the quality of the water that enters our waterway, but we're trying to control the quantity as well. Anytime we have activities that are disturbing more than an acre of land, construction activities, people are required to come in and get a permit to do those activities. And within that permit, there will be best management practices that they have to follow. Sometimes there's monitoring, so we know what's running off of the area that they're disturbing. People feel that when they get permits, they have a right to pollute, and that's the exact opposite of what permits allow them to do. Permits make them stop polluting or change their activities so that they're not polluting our waterways. So examples of best management practices would be simply putting a tarp over a pile of scrap metal, or moving a source material or a pollutant indoors rather than leaving it outside. General housekeeping practices, sweeping at the end of the day can make a huge difference in stormwater runoff. So there are many things that people can do that do not cost a ton of money that can have a great improvement in water quality.
It doesn't make any sense anymore to continue to develop in our floodplains. And we need to look at the regulations and really look at how our laws and regulations can support a very robust, healthy, great society here in New Jersey. And the damage and devastation that happens when we have major flooding events is something that, while we can't completely prevent, we certainly can manage better. And so I think that looking at our flood hazard regulations and ensuring that we're not continuing to destroy our stream banks and build homes and businesses and schools close to areas that are flooding is both prudent from a public health and safety matter, but it's also ecologically important as well to maintain those streams intact.
The normal patterns of rainfall are changing, and many of our water systems are designed to be based on a certain amount of average flow that was happening in the 50s and 60s, not what's happening today. And then when you throw land use on top of it, paving over the countryside and changing, again, the water models we have, it makes things even worse. So we're creating more droughts and more floods. New Jersey will probably be the first state east of the Rockies to run out of water. And I don't say that, in a glib way, but we're creating an asphalt desert in this state. The more we pave over the countryside and fill in wetlands and destroy our headwater areas, the less water we're going to have, and the more floods we're going to have. We're putting the water completely out of balance in the state. People forget that when you have a heavy rain, the soft soils in the forest can soak up 3 inches of rainfall, and trees can absorb thousands of gallons. And when we cut those forests down and pave them over, that water runs off as polluted stormwater, flooding areas down below and polluting our rivers and reservoirs. When we protect our forests, that water not only soaks into the soil, but it makes its way into the aquifers. And what happens is the waters that recharge our aquifers then get released during dry periods in the summertime, maintaining stream flow. And what we're doing in the state by paving over our countryside and destroying the headwater areas is that we're creating not only worse floods, but we're creating droughts. And that's why in New Jersey we seem to have a cycle of flood and drought. This year we have floods, next year we may have a very severe drought. And there was a study done by Rutgers University a couple of years ago, and they showed about 9% of New Jersey permanently going underwater if sea level were to rise 2 feet in the next 50 years. And those are the same areas that now are constantly flooding. So I see climate as the biggest overall threat to water. The next major threat is pollution, whether it's the 20,000 contaminated sites where we have 3,500 of them leaking into groundwater. We have Superfund sites that are next to rivers that are leaking, old garbage dumps and landfills, sewer plants. We have lost more than 1,200 wells in New Jersey in the last 25 years because of groundwater pollution coming from contaminated sites, gas stations, chemical plants, other things. We have lost a lot of reservoirs because of overdevelopment in their watershed. And we also have another big problem with nutrients from non-point and from sewer plants creating algae blooms. During some of the droughts, we've had algae clogging the water supply intakes in Bridgewater at Elizabethtown or up at the Wanacue Reservoir, actually clogging their filters and slowing down the amount of water that they could actually take out because they had to keep cleaning their filters from all the algae that was clogging it. So many of the places we take water from are also getting dirtier because of development and pollution problems as well. So what's happening is more and more of our water supply is being dependent on just a few sources. And that is a real concern because we have no other place to get water. People want clean water. It's probably the #1 environmental issue we have in New Jersey.
We are a planet now running out of freshwater sources. The water's somewhere on the planet, but we're either polluting it or diverting it or moving it from where we can access it to where we cannot at an absolutely astounding rate. There was a recent study on groundwater takings. I call it groundwater mining because very often it's like a gold mining company comes in and they take all the gold till it's gone, and this will happen in these aquifers. And this study said that we've doubled the amount of groundwater use in the last 40 years, but we're exponentially doubling it again. So it'll be much, much quicker. The next doubling will be much quicker than 20 years. And what this study said was that if we're extracting from the Great Lakes and the Great Lakes groundwater as quickly as we're extracting around the world, the Great Lakes could be bone dry in 80 years. Which I think is just an astonishing statistic. And we are drying up the earth. And so we are creating a system where we're draining the water out of the land-based systems, and it is one of the reasons, the causes for growing the rising oceans. And in fact, this groundwater study that I was telling you about actually said that probably at least a quarter of the cause of rising oceans is the displacement of land-based water through the dumping of this water through cities, not traditional climate change as we have understood it. Another recent statement that's come out of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, this is the Ogallala Aquifer Center, that's studying the Ogallala, which was once the biggest aquifer in the world, we think, and is now only producing half the food it was producing in the 1970s. They're saying officially, it will be gone. The Ogallala Aquifer will be gone probably within our lifetime unless there's some huge conservation that quickly takes place, and there will be no substantial food production on the Great Plains of the United States. We're seeing a planet now running out of clean fresh water, which is something we were all taught wasn't possible. But through a combination of pollution, a global food trade where we use massive amounts of water to grow food that we then export out of not only the watersheds, but the countries. And then massive displacement of land-based water and groundwater into the ocean, which is where we dump our water when we're finished with it. We're a planet running out of water. The demand is going straight up and the supply is going straight down. Water itself has rights, and we have got to change our relationship to water. We've got to stop seeing water and all of nature as a big resource for us for our convenience and profit and pleasure. We have got to start respecting it in a fundamentally different way. Water is the essential element of a living ecosystem. It gives us life. Without it, we don't live. The most important thing anybody can do is protect your own watershed from pollution, from over-extraction, from theft, corporate theft, from government ineptitude. From carelessness, from invasive species. I mean, we have multiple threats, multiple pollution threats, multiple extraction threats. And I think a lot of people are really beginning to see what's happening with their local water systems, and they're worried about it, but they also don't know what to do. And they think, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not an environmentalist, I'm not a scientist, what can I do? And I use the term, you have the right to care. Just because you live there. And I'd take it a step further, you have the responsibility to care, because that's your water system, and if you don't stand up for it, if you don't work to protect your local water system, who's going to? And so I think we need to empower people to really see their right and their responsibility to say, listen, governments aren't doing it. If they, which is not to let them off the hook, but who's going to look after this water system if it isn't me? And the resistance that we're seeing with people around the world to the theft of their water from corporations or the privatization of their water services or whatever, it's amazing. And people can do amazing things when they come together and say, you shall not pass, like out of, Lord of the Rings, you will not pass here. This belongs to us. Belongs to my kids, belongs to their kids, it belongs to the ecosystem, and you're just not coming in here to take it.
Every time we have moved this state or neighborhoods or the country forward, it took a lot of work. Nothing, nothing happened because the politicians just willed it. It happened because people got out, went to meetings at night. I call them the armies of the night, and there are people who sit at a planning board meeting to 2 o'clock in the morning so they don't vote through some subdivision that's going to destroy a hillside and run and cause more flooding on neighboring properties and get rid of some important open space. Or all the thousands of people who sign letters to save a piece of property from the bulldozers, or who go to EPA meetings to fight to clean up a toxic site in their community. And it happens every day, and people do it. We have to really understand that we're all part of one purpose. So we were making a lot of good individual choices, but we also need to understand that it's not just the individual and not just your local community, that we're all connected. Environmentalists sometimes get attacked as NIMBYs, and I always say, well, John Muir was a NIMBY and his backyard was Yosemite. And if each one of us get involved in protecting some open space, cleaning a park, stopping some toxic pollution in our own neighborhoods, and we do it neighborhood by neighborhood, it's not NIMBYism, it's how you save the world. Neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, and that's really what we, I think, today need. But it's also part of how we've done things in the past and why we have made the differences that we have made when it comes to the air we breathe, the water we drink, or the open spaces that we have. It would not be there without citizens' involvement. So what I say to folks is that you have a lot of power.
I think the best time for people to get involved is now. There's no time like the present. So how can you get involved? There's a couple different things. Go to a stream cleanup, help pick up litter, meet your neighbor, find out what they're doing. You can buy local food so that you are reducing the amount of truck transportation it takes or air transportation it takes to bring your food from overseas.
Take a look at your downspout, okay? An awful lot of downspouts go straight down into the ground. You have no idea where they're going. Typically, they connect to a large pipe that connects to a larger pipe, and all that water is going to go straight into a stream somewhere. It's going to hammer that stream with all this water that it's not ready to receive, okay? We can change that, okay? We can put on a rain barrel, saw off that downspout, connect it to a rain barrel or a series of rain barrels to hold the water instead of throwing it straight into the stream when it rains. You can plant a garden, something called a rain garden, and then connect your downspout to that rain garden. A green roof is a little bit more involved. A green roof is essentially putting on top of your roof a profile of soil and plants that again suck up water, and instead of having it run straight into a pipe somewhere and hammering the stream, you're holding it back, and in that case the water is either released much more gradually or it's actually evapotranspirated through the plants right back into the atmosphere.
My name is Dr. Arlene Rogo. I am the principal here of Midtown Community Elementary School in Neptune.
My name is Donald Frangipane. I'm the facility engineer at the Neptune Township School District. So some of the benefits of the green roof are definitely adds to the thermal insulating barrier of the building, and it improves the efficiency. Definitely helps take the water and utilize it right here on site instead of letting it run off site.
To bring a class up here, we've got the benches set up so a teacher can do lessons up here. They can come up here and see how the rainwater is capped and how it feeds the plants. And one thing that this building does, because of its features, the children learn that they can use the environment without abusing the environment.
We received the Platinum LEED certification from the United States Green Building Council. That's leadership in environmental and energy efficient design. And this building is the largest public school that has received platinum certification. Yes, there were some slightly higher upfront costs in construction, and we knew that would be the case. We really need to convey the message of how our environment needs to be protected, and I really believe the LEED certification does that, and I don't see any merit to concerns about added costs. As I said, there may be slightly higher upfront costs, but it's no more expensive to run this building than any other. In fact, there's a savings. There's definitely a payoff with the environment, with the usage of electricity, the comfort of the building. The thermal envelope in this building is very tight. Insulation there's a good amount of insulation. The green roof helps with that. So the building has been very efficient to operate. And we're very proud of that achievement, and we're happy that the students in Neptune Township can learn from their building on how to protect the environment going forward. And here on our green roof, we have an aqueduct system that collects the rainwater from the roof, comes down through an aqueduct, comes across here, and it'll empty into splash basin. So then as the water runs off the aqueduct into the splash basins, it's guided over towards the 4 planting beds where then it'll be absorbed into the soil. The plants will then utilize the water, help evaporate it back into the atmosphere. The water will never leave this roof and drain out into the system of the stormwater system of the township. And these plants up here on the green roof will thrive from that water right off of the roof.
Non-point source pollution, we always like to say, is people pollution. And is one of the most difficult things to address through regulation because it's people's everyday choices. But on the flip side of that, I feel like because we are the problem, we are also the solution. So, it's our choices.
Our Clean Water New Jersey educational outreach program addresses things that people do in their daily lives that can have a huge impact on water quality, and then it gives them alternatives to the different ways that they can do these activities. The thing that I get most excited about is when you're working with children and school groups, and they already know these things. Or when you talk about non-point source pollution and talk about the storm drain, and oh, I know that there's a stencil there that says don't dump into that. So, that's an exciting thing that I think has changed.
The education programs that we have here, I think, are so critical, particularly for kids from suburban areas and from urban areas who don't get that the water coming out of their faucet doesn't just come from the pipe in the sidewalk, but that it comes from a river, it comes from groundwater.
I like to say that our camp is important because it helps connect the soul of the child with the heartbeat of the natural world. And I think that's something that we had in our earlier evolution, but again, with the distractions of modern living, it sort of slipped to the wayside. Our summer camp, we see about 300 people during the course of the summer. It sounds like fun, and it is fun, but we have an educational objective. We do call it the Nature and Environment Day Camp. The notion there is that we have the kids all day long in week-long units, and so we go out and explore streams, we meet trees, we meet insects, they learn about their environment.
Almost all of our storm drains go directly into our rivers and streams. Did you know that? One of the things that we're doing at our camp is called Watershed Hero, and it's based around our larger thing at the watershed called River Friendly. It's a translation of it so that campers can do something to have a positive impact on the water and the water quality. And it's 4 activities that they do throughout the week, and it's in four categories. There's waste, so they can do a lesson on compost. They learn where to put their garbage. There's water conserving, so they learn, how to use enough water so that they stay hydrated, but not overuse it or spill it on the ground. We also learn how different habitats are affected and how the habitats are affected by us, and how that also affects water quality. Having a good forest and grass instead of pavement helps the animals and the plants, and also the 4th is water pollution. So the little things that we can do as people, as campers, that can affect the water positively. And these activities are designed to help campers understand that even though they're little, they can still have an impact, and positively or negatively.
Campers, this is the Stony Brook. There are lots of cool things in here. I have a list of what you may find. Check out these guys. They kind of look like aliens, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they are. I see little fishes.
See fishes?
Me too. Little baby fishes. Where? Okay. In the water.
Okay, so we caught lots of cool things. Does anyone want to share what they found today?
I do. I caught a crayfish.
Crayfish?
Yeah.
Who else caught a crayfish?
I did.
You did?
I caught a mini, like one this big.
Cool.
I caught crayfish big and small.
Okay.
It's important to teach the children about the non-point source pollution and sustainability because they're the future decision makers. They're the ones that are going to be making the decisions about our environment when we're older. So it's going to be their choices that are going to affect the environment.
If it takes a village to raise a child, it certainly takes a community to protect the environment.
When we have kids in our charge, whether it be scout groups or school groups like we have here today, or public programs, you can see the sparkle in the eyes, you see the smile. I always tell my staff that's our currency, putting people in touch with the natural world, helping them realize their place in it. When you see that look on their face, that's telling us that we're doing something important and valid. And I think that this is work that will continue forever, and its urgency maybe increases as time passes.